So, let's talk about the Edelweiss. When you hear that name, you probably get a very specific image in your head, right? Sweeping mountain views, maybe a certain famous movie musical song starts playing. But the real story of this flower, it's way more complex, a lot more dramatic, and honestly, way cooler than you might think. For so many of us, this song is the Edelweiss. It was written for the sound of music, and it perfectly paints this picture of a pure, noble flower, a symbol of Austrian pride, standing tall against the darkness of war. It's a beautiful, romantic idea, and it's almost completely a myth.
Yeah, you heard that right. What if I told you that this ultimate symbol of the Alps, this icon of the European homeland, is actually an immigrant? A tough-as-nails survivor that traveled thousands and thousands of miles just to get there.
To really get to the truth, we first have to peel back the layers of the legend. So, let's start right there. Section 1. The Alpine Myth.
Even the name Edelweiss is basically a brilliant piece of 19th century marketing. Before it was the noble white, the locals just called it wool bloom, which literally means wool flower. That name change was a very deliberate rebrand, designed to turn a common mountain plant into this grand symbol of purity and virtue.
And this is where the legend really kicks into high gear. As mountain climbing, alpinism, became popular, the flower turned into a kind of trophy. This story spread about young men having to risk their lives, scaling these impossible cliffs, all to pluck a single flower for their beloved as proof of their love. It's a super romantic image, and it cemented its heroic status, even if, in reality, the flower often grew in much easier-to-reach meadows. Okay, so if the whole romance part was kind of an invention, what's the real story? Well, the truth is actually an even more incredible tale. Let's get into it. Section 2. An immigrant survivor.
Get this, the Edelweiss isn't from the Alps at all. Its story starts thousands of years ago, way over in the high plains of Asia, the Himalayas and Siberia. During the Ice Ages, it basically hitched a ride west, following the edge of the massive glaciers. Then, when the ice finally retreated, the flower didn't go back east, it went up, finding a new home in the cold, harsh, high-altitude peaks of the European Alps.
Which of course brings up a huge question. I mean, it's one thing to get to the Alps, but how does this thing that looks so delicate actually survive up there? It's getting blasted by wind and absolutely scorched by some of the most intense UV radiation on Earth. How does it do it?
Well, the answer is basically a natural superpower. You see that fuzzy white stuff, the wool? It's not just for keeping warm. It's actually a biophotonic structure, a natural photonic crystal. To put it simply, it's an incredibly advanced built-in sunblock, engineered by nature itself to filter out the sun's most damaging rays. And the technology behind this is just staggering. The tiny little fibers that create this protective shield are only 0.18 micrometers wide. That is smaller than a wavelength of near-ultraviolet light. This lets them literally manipulate and scatter radiation at a microscopic level. It's nanoscale engineering perfected inside a flower. Wild. This survival story gets even more intense when humans get involved and start attaching their own meanings to it. From the highest peaks, the Edelweiss came down into the messy, turbulent politics of the 20th century. Which brings us to Section 3, a symbol fought over.
And this is where you see the central conflict of the Edelweiss. On one hand, it's a symbol of the establishment. Austrian emperors wore it. It was the official insignia for Hitler's elite mountain troops, the Gebirgsjäger, a symbol of state power. But on the complete flip side, it was also the secret symbol of the Edelweiss pirates, groups of teenagers who fought back against that exact same regime.
The pirates' journey was this incredible escalation. I mean, it started with just simple non-conformity. They rejected the uniforms and the strict drills of the Hitler Youth, and instead grew their hair long and went camping. But that grew into real, active resistance. They started handing out Allied propaganda, they sabotaged military targets, and eventually they were hiding people who were fleeing the Gestapo.
And they paid the ultimate price for it. The Nazi regime saw them as a genuine threat. For these kids, wearing an Edelweiss pen wasn't some romantic gesture. It was an act of life-for-death rebellion that could, and for many of them did, cost them everything.
After all that brutal history, the Edelweiss took another totally unexpected turn. It went from being this wild icon fought over by empires and rebels and made one last journey, into the laboratory and onto the store shelf. Welcome to Section 4, the modern commodity.
So today, that same wild, hard-to-reach flower is now meticulously farmed in the Swiss Alps. They grow it above 1,000 meters to mimic its natural home and keep pests away. And it's all certified organic. Why? To make sure the chemical extracts are pure enough for the high-end cosmetics industry. This incredible wild survivor has officially been domesticated.
And you can see why. The economic payoff is huge. For farmers in this region of Switzerland, Edelweiss is a lifeline. Per hectare, it's about 5 to 6 times more valuable than other mountain herbs like mint or thyme. And it's all because of those powerful chemicals it makes to survive.
And here is where its ancient survival story meets modern science. That same powerful antioxidant, it's called Leontopodic acid, that protects the flower's DNA from all that sun damage, well, now it's being used to protect our skin. In fact, clinical studies have shown its stem cells can reduce the depth of wrinkles by over 15%. But even with all these farms growing Edelweiss, the original wild plant is still fiercely protected. In some parts of Austria, if you get caught illegally harvesting it on an organized scale, you could be facing a fine of up to 30,000 euros. It's a very clear message about how precious this wild survivor still is.
So think about that journey, from the Himalayas to the Alps, from an Embero's jacket to a resistance fighter's secret pin, from a high-altitude cliff to a high-end face cream. The Edelweiss has survived it all. But now, as our climate warms and forces it ever higher up the mountains, it's starting to run out of room to climb. Its greatest story of survival might just be the one that's happening right now.